Beruchim haboim. Welcome everyone. We're about to begin Be'ezras Hashem together on Daf Tzadik Gimel Amud Aleph, the last line on the Amud. The Gemara is discussing the case of Ze Yachol Veze Eino Yachol. Two people do a malacha together. One is able to do it on his own, while the other person cannot do it on his own. So the ruling is that the one who can do it on his own will be chayiv, whereas the one who is Eino Yachol is potter because he's a Messiah, ein boy mamish. He's not doing anything of significance, and therefore only the one who is Yachol will be chayiv. The Gemara now brings a series of proofs to show that this is the case, that a person who is Yachol together with Eino Yachol, only the one who is Yachol will be held responsible. Says the Gemara, Amra Papi Mishmei Derove Af Anonami Tanino. Even we taught the following. Rabbi Yosi Omer, it says in the Mishnah, Hasus metame al yodov, hachamor al raglov. Shemishanes hasus al yodov v'chamor al raglov. The girsa in our Mishnah in Zovim is the opposite. It says that the sus, he is made for running, and therefore he puts his weight on the back two legs. The chamor, on the other hand, is made for holding heavy loads, carrying heavy loads, and therefore he puts his weight on the first two legs. And therefore, the Mishnah says, according to Rabbi Yosi, that indeed, the ones that he is going to then put his weight on, whether it's the sus on the back legs or the chamor on the front legs, those are going to be mitame, the talesim that are underneath each leg, not the other two legs. Says the Gemara, Va'amai, Haka Mesayeh Bahadi Hadadi. The other two legs are indeed supporting, they're going to be Messiah, helping support the other two legs. Says the Gemara, Lav Mishum Damin Messiah Ein Boy Mamish. It must be that indeed the other two legs are not of significance, whereby that's why they're not Metamed Talesim underneath them. Says the Gemara, Rav Ashi, Af Ananami Tani. Rav Ashi says, we also learned this. Rabbi Eliezer Omer, Ragloi Achas al Hakli, Raglo Achas al Ritzpo. We're talking about a Kohen doing the Avodah, and he cannot have any chatzitza between his feet and the ground. So if he has 1 foot on the ground and 1 foot, it says, on the Evan, on a Kli rather, or a second case, Ragla al achas al ha'em, ragla achas al ha'vitzvah, or 1 foot on a rock and 1 foot on the ground. So it says over here, Royin kol she'ilu yinatel kli v'tinatel ha'evan. If in the first case you could take his foot off the kli, or in the second case you can take the foot that's on the stone off the stone, and he can still maintain his balance. Yachol ha'amod al raglei achas avodosa keshero. Then his avodah is kosher, because indeed he doesn't have a chatzitza. In other words, it's not significant that his foot was on the kli or the foot was on the evan. V'im lav avodah psula. However, if indeed he could not support himself, then it would be possible. Says the Gemara, V'amai, why not? Haka misayeh bahadadodi. That foot that's on the kli, or in the second case, the foot that's on the evan, is misayeh. Ella must be la mishum damin Messiah ein boy mamish, that which is giving a Messiah doesn't have significance, and therefore it's not maila or morid to make it either possible or kosher the avodah. Omer Ravina af anan nami tanina. I should say more specifically, it means that it's not going to then help it will not poisel the avodah, the fact that the foot is being supported on the kli or on the evan. Omar Ravino af ananami tanino. Ravina says we also taught this in the following. It says kibo biyamim v'smol misayosoi. That means to say that when it comes to a kohen, one of the avodas was being mekabil the dam. He's mekabil dam. He must do so in the right hand. If he does so in the right hand and the left hand is supporting that right hand, so it says avodosa keshero. It's a good avodah. Says the Gemara, V'amai, it's helping to support that right hand, so it should really be poisel. It must be La Mishum Damrin Messiah Ein Boy Mamish, that the Messiah, in this case the left hand, has no significance, whereby indeed Shema Mina we can derive that this principle is found in other places. Again, when you have somebody who's a Yochel and somebody who's not a Yochel doing a malacha together on Shabbos, only the Yochel is going to be held liable a korban chatos, because the other one who's just Messiah Ein Boy Mamish is not significant. Omar Mar, the Gemara brings back the previous statement that we saw earlier, Ze Yochel v'Ze Yochel, Rabbi Meir Chayiv. In a case where two people do a malacha together, both are able to do the malacha on their own. According to Rabbi Meir, it's Chayiv. Now, we also learned, and this is going to be equally true to the opinion of Rabbi Yehuda, when it's a case of Eino Yochel v'Ze Eino Yochel, where both are not able to do the malacha on their own. The din is that when they do the malacha together, it will be chayiv. So in both scenarios, either according to this case of Zeh Yachal for Rabbi Meir, it's going to be chayiv. According to Rabbi Yehuda, in the case of Eino Yachal Zeh Eino Yachal, will be chayiv. In both cases, we're going to bring a series of proofs, right, to understand what exactly is this shita that is mechayiv. Iboy the Gemara first asks, let's say in the malacha of Hoitzah, right? We know that each item that a person is going to carry out, it has to have a minimum shiur. We discussed at length. So the question is, does it need a minimum shiur for each of the people doing the malacha, both of each of the two that are doing the malacha, the minimum shiur, or do they share together that minimum shiur? As follows. Does each one need the complete shiur to be chayiv, or dilma shiur echad lekulam, or is it enough that there's one shiur between the two of them, and that will also mechayiv them? In other words, do we say that each one is doing a malacha on his own, whereby he needs to then have the entire shiur himself, or do we say since he's sharing the malacha together with somebody else, so the shiur is also considered to be shared? Rav Chizda, Rav Huna have a machlokes about this. Chad amar shiur lezeh v'shiur lezeh. One said that each one has to have a complete shiur in order to be chayav. The Chad amar shiur echad lekulam, whereas the other one holds that as long as there's one shiur amongst both of them, that's going to be enough to mechayev both of them. Omar apapa mishmei derava, and now we're going to bring again a series of proofs to one of these tzaddim. Says the Gemara, Amar Apop Mishmei Derava. Af ananami tanino. We also learn the following: Haya yoshev al gabe mito, ve'arba taliyos tachas arba ragle mito. This is the Mishnah we saw on Amud Aleph, that if there are a bed that a zav is sitting on, and that bed has 4 legs, under each leg is a separate talis. So it says over here that the din is that all 4 of these talesim are going to be Tameh. The din is, says the Mishnah, since none of these legs can support the zav, it needs all 4 legs, whereby we say that if it doesn't have one of these legs, it will fall, whereby each and every one of these legs is significant. This is a case of Zeh Eino Yachal v'Zeh Eino Yachal, where we saw that indeed Rabbi Yehuda says in the case of Melech Shabbos, they'll be chayiv. So too over here, then the zav, we don't say divides its weight between every corner, but rather each one is significant, and it's considered as if the entire weight of the zav is under each leg, whereby each of the talesim will become tamei. Otherwise, you should say that it requires 4 zivois to sit on this bed to metame all 4 talesim. Elamai. It must be la mishum da'amrin shiur echad lekulam. That indeed we say that it's enough to have one shiur for all of these talesim, and therefore we say that indeed it's one shiur for everybody together, just like the case of Zeh Yachal v'Zeh Yachal according to Rabbi Meir is chayiv, or Zeh Eino Yachal v'Zeh Eino Yachal is chayiv even according to Rabbi Yehuda. That's one shiur amongst both of them. Says the Gemara weiter, another proof to this effect. Omar of Nachman bar Yitzchok, Af ananami tanina. We also learn this in the following Mishnah. Tzvi shenichnas lebayis, if a deer enters a home, a room, v'na'al echad b'fonav chayiv, and one person closes the door, trapping the deer inside, he's going to be chayiv for meleches seidon. No lushnayim betun. If they both close that door, where it's a case of ze yachol v'ze yachol, so the din is pturin. Lo yachol echol lin'ol v'no lushnayim chayovin. If neither one of them could close the door and trap the deer on his own, he needs both of them because the space is too big. For example, he needs both of them to then make up the space. When they close the door, there's still a space, so each one sits, let's say, in the space between the door and the wall in order to trap the deer. So then chayavim, they're both going to be held accountable because it's the case of zeh eino yochel v'zeh eino yochel. The Rabbi Yehuda, he'll also be chayav. Ve'amai, the Gemara says, liboy shir tzeda lezeh v'shir tzeda lezeh. Why don't we suggest then that it would require the shir tzeda of each one? Why is it that they're both going to be chayiv? Lav mishum da'amrin and shir echad lekulam. Rather, we can see from here another proof that one shir is enough between the both of them. Omar Ravina, af ananami tanina. Ravina says we also learned another Mishnah to this effect. Hashutfin sheganvu v'tovchu chayavim. If there are two partners in crime, they both steal, they gneva together, and they are shechting a seh, for example, right? And they're going to be either a seh or a para or shor. They're going to be chayiv dalid vehei. So it says they have to pay dalid vehei. V'amai, asked the Gemara, liboy shir tevicha lezeh v'shir tevicha lezeh. Why don't you say it's one shir tevicha should be for each one? Why are they both chayiv dalid vehei? Ella must be la mishum damrin shir echad lekulam. Again, we see the same principle. One shir is enough between the two of them. Omar Rav Ashi af ananami tanin. Rav Ashi now says another proof that one shir is enough between both of them. Shnaim shehotziu kone shel gardi chayavim. Two people who take out a reed that is used by a person who's weaving, and he takes it out from the shusa yachid to the shusa rabim. Chayavim. If both of these two people take out this kane, gardi, from Shul Yachid Shul Rabim, they're going to be chayiv for melechas hoitzo. V'amai, why should this be so? Lei boy shiur hoitzo lezeh v'shiur hoitzo lezeh. Say that each one requires a separate shir hoitzo, and therefore only one should be chayiv. Why are they both chayiv? They should be potter. La mishum da'amin and shir zeh lekul. Must be that one shir is significant, is enough for the two of them. Omar le Rav Acha b'rei Rav Ashi, challenging this last proof. Dilma di isbe kedei levashel beitza kal lezeh ubeitza kal lezeh. Maybe this kana gardi is indeed, as we saw before, that the shear for a kana for 8 sim is enough to cook a egg of a tarnagolis, the shear of a kegrogeres. So why don't we say that is a big enough kana? So therefore, it's able to then cook this amount for each one. It has 2 different shiurim, and therefore you have no proof. In Cain, the Gemara says, Lishma'in kana de alma, maishna de gardi. Why mention a kana de gardi of a weaver's type of reed? Just mention a regular kana, and then we can then say it has a long piece of kana, enough to then cook the size of grogeres for 2 different shiurim. So Gemara says, no, v'dilma is maybe this kana is enough to then pat down the size of this beged, this towel, and the size of this towel, and therefore there's 2 shiurim involved. To which the Gemara says, you're right, we cannot bring a proof from this case of kana de gardi. Tana kamei de Rav Nachman. There was a brisa, a teaching that was taught before Rav Nachman. Shnaim shoitziu kana shel gardi peturin. It says 2 people who bring out a kana shel gardin will be potter from meleches hoitzo. Rabbi Shimon mechayiv, and Rabbi Shimon will say chayiv. Ask the Gemara, klape laya, to whom are you turning this teaching towards? In other words, If we remember before that Rabbi Shimon is the makel opinion, always says potter when two people do a malacha. Either it's ze yachal v'ze yachal, or ze eino yachal v'ze eino yachal. But Rabbi Shimon always maintains that there's potter. So why over here would you say that Rabbi Shimon is mechayiv? Ella says the Gemara, ei mechayovin. Rabbi Shimon potter. You have to flip it around and say that the Tanakama says chayovin, and it's Rabbi Shimon that says potter.